Testing? Oh, okay. Makes a difference to turn on the power, even in our IoT world. Okay, first of all, thanks everybody for coming out today. I know it's there's some rain out there, and it's great to see everyone. I wanted to start out by saying we welcome the SmartConnected Roadshow to New York City. So they've just come off of many city tour, and I actually saw them in DC last week, and it's quite impressive. And so when they approached IoT Central, we decided to cooperate and help on the New York City Roadshow. So I'd like to introduce Yamazaki of TEMA, who is coordinator of the Roadshow.
Great, thank you, Mitchell. Thank you guys so much for coming out on a Friday morning, on Good Friday. I know, I know some people have things to do, but yeah. So we're based in Germany, and we do a lot of events, IoT-related events in Germany. We also do a lot of industrial automation-related events and building automation-related events. And so this is our first time involving ourselves in the U.S., and we went through all of California, Texas, DC, Chicago. See some familiar faces from Chicago here as well. Yeah, so if you want to ask us about what we do, myself and my colleague over there, Philip over there, will be there we will be available to answer your questions. But yeah, thank you very much for coming out, and please, our sponsors TELUS and Core are here. They will give fantastic presentations, and they've sponsored the food and everything, so thank you very much for that. So thanks a lot.
Thanks, Dana, and I just want to say it's really been a pleasure working with you and the TEMA team. Let's see. So next up, I really want to thank our host and sponsor, Loeb and Loeb. They've been outstanding in terms of support of IoT Central, and I'd like to invite up Lloyd Rothenberg, who is the partner and deputy chair of the capital markets and corporate group here at Loeb and Loeb. And he's been a great supporter of IoT Central.
Thank you, Mitchell, and good morning. I'm just going to give a short public service announcement. Loeb & Loeb is a law firm. We do a tremendous amount of work in the Internet of Things, in connected machines, in technology, in outsourcing, anything related to media. We have an entire group that we've coined Advanced Media and Technology. It does exactly what it sounds like it does. We represent startup companies, we represent more mature companies, we take companies public, we do the whole gamut. So two things. One, if you have any legal needs, let us know. And if while you're here you have any practical needs, let us know as well. We'll be happy to take care of those. So thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Lloyd. A few other special thank yous here at Loeb & Loeb. They've really provided this beautiful space, as you can see. We'd like to special thanks to Diana Barone and also to Nora Maglaby, who are on the event side here at Loeb & Loeb. So we really appreciate their help. Some other special thanks go to Michael Wong, who is with IoT Central. Michael, are you in the room? Okay, and Nan Zhao, and Nan is helping with the sign-in. He is also an outstanding embedded programmer, so he's looking for an internship in embedded programming. So if anybody knows of an internship in the summer for embedded programming, he's available. So the agenda, we've changed just a little bit. There's a couple of notable changes. I've adjusted the time tier, and we're also not going to have the speaker from uBlocks. He couldn't make it, unfortunately. So what we're going to do is we're going to have all three presentations right in a row. So it's going to be first, it's going to be TELUS presenting, then Core presenting, and then Scripter presenting. So, and then we'll have networking afterwards. So we'll go 1, 2, 3, and then we'll have networking. A little bit about IoT Central. IoT Central's mission is to inspire, engage, and connect entrepreneurs, investors, professionals, and enthusiasts worldwide who are active in the Internet of Things. And we have a lot of activities. We've grown in New York City to over 3,700 members in just less than 2 years. And we've expanded recently to other cities, including Seattle, LA, DC, and Miami. So we're coming to a city near you soon. So if you have any interest in getting involved with IoT Central, either in New York or in other cities, we'd gladly welcome that. And what we do is we focus on, obviously, on Internet of Things, connected devices. We're not a hardware meetup or a software meetup. We're actually at the intersection of hardware and software because I believe that's where the opportunity is. And we have events that are either at the intersection of IoT and a vertical, such as healthcare, or energy efficiency, or smart cities, or IoT and a horizontal, such as IoT platforms, IoT security, big data, things that can be applied across different verticals. So we stay focused on IoT, and we try to have events that best suit the professional people working in the Internet of Things. It's a huge field. We all know that it's growing. Estimates of 50 billion devices by 2020, impact of $10 trillion by 2025. So huge market, and we try to stay focused on the business opportunities around IoT. That said, we're offering a one-day course on IoT here in New York City on April 6th. It's going to be a full-day course. It's being taught by Bruce Sinclair of IoT Inc. And the idea is that you can learn there about IoT technology and how to apply it to benefit your business and customers. It is an in-depth and intensive course. I sat through a similar course at the IoT World Conference with Bruce Sinclair, and I thought it was so good that I approached him after the conference, and I said, it'd be great to bring you to New York to do this. And he agreed, and it's almost a year later, and that's happening. So it is a paid event. You can find more information at the link here, and you should have on your seat also a brochure with information. And there's a discount code of 40% off for anybody that is an IoT Central member. So you should be able to register there. And if you have any questions on it, I'll be glad to answer them afterwards. I'll be here during that work session, obviously. One more thing is that we have the IoT map. So if you have a company that is IoT related, go to theiotmap.com, okay, and you can actually put your company on the map, literally. And what it is it's a searchable database that you can find other companies that are either supporting the IoT industry or that are directly in the IoT industry. A few ways to keep in touch with us. We have a Twitter handle of @IoTCentral, our website, iotcentral.co, the map. There's a YouTube channel where we're streaming live now, which is youtube.com/NYCIoT. And if you need to get in touch with me, my email is there. It's mitchell@iotcentral.co, not com, but .co. And we will do, at the end, we'll have member announcements. So one thing we do at the end of every meetup is that we enable anyone who's looking for a job or who offers some type of service. They may be a consultant, or their company is hiring, or they have a special offer. They want to give away free cars or something. If anybody has something special that they want to announce, they're welcome to announce. You get your 20 seconds then. So get that in mind. And without further ado, we're going to go right into the program. Any questions so far? So we'll go right into the program, and I'll ask Nana to introduce our next speaker.
So our next speaker is Virgil Renz from TELUS. He is the Director of Strategic Accounts, IoT. TELUS, if you're not familiar with, are the largest and coolest telecom company in Canada, and he'll tell you more about that. So please give a warm round of applause for Virgil Renz.
Good morning. Thank you for coming out on a wonderful gray morning here in New York. So this is.
If you have any questions after our next two speakers, Virgil, Dan, and Nadi? Oh, sorry, I forgot your name. Will be available from
Rabia.
Rabia?
Rabia.
Oh, Rabia. Sorry. We'll be here to answer your questions. Yes, you, Rabia. Sorry. We'll be available to answer your questions. So the next speaker is Dan Cebula from Core. Core recently acquired Wireless. I don't know how many of you are aware of that, and now puts Core as one of 6 largest IoT service providers globally. So feel free to ask him about that as well. It's not made public yet, but well, it's made public but not official yet. So you can ask him about that as well. So please give a warm round of applause to Dan Cebula.
Is this somebody's phone? Is this yours, Virgil?
Oh, yes, thanks.
Good morning.
That's what happens when you have like 3 or 4 of those things. You know, they walk off on you.
Good morning. So again, thank you, as Virgil mentioned, half of Core for having us. Anybody hear me on all the ends of the building? I'm going to try not to just stand in one place and lecture up here, so I'll walk around a little bit. So I think this actually provides a really good segue from Virgil's presentation, which had a lot of really good examples of what IoE looks like, what it can look like, and so why that's a good segue is because now Core can help you enable that and go to market with those solutions. And so while certainly TELUS has some pretty unique solutions to help you go to market with, we think at Core we can do some pretty strategic things with you as well, and we'll talk a little bit about what we think about IoE, IoT, a little bit of a background and introduction on Core. I'll touch on the wireless piece. I don't know if there's any questions on that. I can kind of tell you the public information that we know so far. It's still going through regulatory reviews. And then we'll talk to you about the 5 things your mother never told you about IoE deployments, and some of the things that you need to be looking at, some of the things you need to be wary of, and hopefully some of the things that we can help your organization with. So, and the other thing I'll say is certainly we'll have some time for Q&A afterwards, but if anybody's got any questions during the presentation, feel free to just interrupt me afterwards. So. Excuse me. Sure. Technical difficulties.
That's a pocket?
Nope. Here, I'll just put it in here. Come on. Okay. Good. All right. So the Internet of Things, the Internet of Everything, is not just about things, right? It's about intelligent things, what you can do with that information, and it's really about transforming businesses into service companies. If you look at any example of IoE, everything that Virgil just talked about, it's about delivering some sort of service, whether it's to the consumer, whether it's internally to a business, whether it's and they're delivering a service, whether it's internal to the enterprise. They want more information from their machines and their assets and their people. All of it is a service business. So, whether you're the mom and pop pizza shop and you don't even realize you're deploying or using IoE, right? I mean, everybody is literally using it, or you're some of the largest enterprises in the world that are actively looking at ways to deploy it. Everybody will become and is becoming IoT businesses. And as I just mentioned, every business that is in the IoT space is a service business. And so that's kind of our thought process behind the outlook of IoE and how we develop technology and help drive solutions to help enable those service businesses. So let me give you a little bit of information about Core. If you're not familiar with Core, we are the world's largest independent provider of machine-to-machine or IoE connectivity. We've actually kind of owned that title for about 2 or 3 years now. So when I say independent, non-carrier, non-spectrum holding is what that means. They're essentially a wholesale partner for our carriers. Now with the recent acquisition of Wireless, that really does some pretty exciting thing for us. It literally puts us in terms of scalability with our direct competitors or partners in some cases at that level. So we're now the 6th largest provider, not just independent, but largest provider of Internet of Things connectivity provider worldwide. So Today, and some of this is changing obviously with that acquisition, but today we represent 13 different carrier partnerships. 11 of those are cellular, 2 are satellite providers. So we allow our customers to deploy, multi-carrier, multi-technology solutions across a vast array of tier 1 international and domestic service providers. We've built an enterprise-ready management platform, service delivery platform. So if you're familiar with some of the solutions that are out there today, like Jasper or EOD or Enphase, or the machine-machine platform that Verizon uses, we've got a platform that Core uses and delivers not only to our customers, but also to several global carriers called Prism Pro. And again, it allows you to manage your devices that are in the field. But the key highlight there is, as opposed to some of the references that I just made to other platforms, it is agnostic across all of the different partnerships that we have. We have just over, it's a little bit dated, we have just over 3.8 million devices deployed across about 110 countries globally. So a little bit of our story, a little bit of our background. We started back in 2003. One of our first partnerships was actually Rogers in Canada, and then shortly after that, AT&T. Excuse me, AT&T. We shortly after we formed, we knew that we were, instead of just providing connectivity, we were going to need to make sure that we were involved in the ecosystem, and so we were one of the first non-spectrum holding companies that became involved with PTCRB, which Virgil mentioned before. That group is essentially the North American standard or North American regulatory body that enforces the certification requirements of any cellular-based or GSM cellular-based device in North America. So we're really helping to drive a lot of the standards that are being required, specifically though for the IoT space, because obviously PTCRB deals with a lot of traditional consumer-based, phones and tablets and things like that. Not on this slide, but I think is important because it's a good segue from PTCRB, is we're also a member of the International Machine-to-Machine Council. Our CEO is the chairman of the board for that group, and so again, they're not requirements like PTCRB is, but there's standards across modules and carriers and hardware providers and platforms and things like that, which we're really helping to drive the standardization of. So I'll touch on a little bit later some of the verticals that we support, which has allowed us to grow pretty rapidly organically, but we've also gone through quite a bit of growth through acquisition as well. So we acquired a company called Mach Communications in Australia, and that allows us to support customers in our Asia Pac region, but also provide 24/7 support, which is something that's pretty unique to this space. Certainly a big difference between a direct-to-carrier relationship that kind of has that Monday through Friday support model. And then more recently, well, I guess before that, we purchased the GSM assets of Enphase. That's not that interesting to probably most people. Is anybody familiar with Enphase? Okay. Enphase is essentially what Verizon uses as their management platform. They relabeled it. But when they bought Enphase, they didn't want, obviously, the GSM assets, and so Core bought those. We bought a company called Jazz Wireless Data, which was a T-Mobile wholesaler. That's actually where I came from. In 2014, later that same year, we acquired Rayco Wireless. And then on the 9th, I think it was, of this month, we announced our acquisition of Wireless as well. So as I mentioned before, that's still kind of going through some of the regulatory review, but that's, I'll read, this is kind of the legal announcement that they made. They were like, you got to make sure you say this. So the combination of Core and Wireless creates the only truly global, independent, multi-platform Internet of Things services company, delivering an unprecedented portfolio of connected technology, location-aware solutions, and global innovations, including eSIM services. The company's scope and scale will provide customers and partners the benefits of a more diverse global footprint and access to an award-winning set of service platforms to support complex end-to-end managed data solutions. So that's the official official kind of PR press release that we did around the acquisition. There's a ton of buzz out there, so I've got a couple slides that kind of talk about it, but certainly if there's any questions, I can talk about what I know and what I think I know. The combined organizations, this will be really exciting. We'll have offices in 8 different countries, 12 office locations. We'll have data centers here in the US, in Europe, in Australia, a total of 7 global data centers. I don't know if it talks about it on this side. Yeah, so we'll have about 360, a little bit over 360 employees. We'll have well over 3,000 customers that we're supporting between our 2 organizations. And the really exciting statistic for us is our support of well over 6 million devices across those 3,000 customers. It's a very similar footprint in terms of where those devices are deployed in over 110 countries globally. So I think, yeah. This just kind of touches on some of the partnerships. I mentioned before, we currently support 13, I think it's 17 now with the acquisition. So, pretty big names in the connectivity space, right? They're all tier 1 providers. We want to make sure that we're providing a breadth of really good connectivity options to our customers regardless of where they go. All right, I think that's all I have on that wireless piece, but it always seems to get questions. So does anybody have any questions? The combined revenues will be about $250 million. Correct, yeah. About 110, 120. So who are we supporting today? What are some of the verticals that we're supporting today? This is kind of a run through of some of the, whether it be early adopters, some of the companies or industries that help us grow quickly or organically from the beginning, like in fleet and utilities and a lot of the industrial monitoring applications and things like that. But now with some of the newer technologies around 3G, LTE, obviously just the proliferation of cellular or satellite networks, we're seeing huge explosions in obviously healthcare, which Virgil mentioned, insurance, UBI, really across the gamut. Obviously, as I mentioned in my first slide, right, every business is shifting in some way to look at either indirectly or directly deploying some sort of IoE solution. So this slide probably doesn't even do that good of justice. What is our kind of primary value add that we provide? I talked about it just briefly earlier. It's our ability to support customers that want to have multi-technology, multi-carrier solutions, whether it's here domestically or abroad. So what does it look like today if you are actually wanting to deploy a solution? Is anybody, just curious, is anybody actually working on a solution today? Either they're already deploying it or they're working on a solution? Okay. Great. So, some of these challenges, maybe something that you guys have already had to address, right? So maybe you want to launch GSM, AT&T, they have a platform called EOD, and you've got a contract and a set of APIs, a VPN to manage, a support team, infrastructure to work with. And that's, great, although some of the carriers can be somewhat challenging to work with just in and of themselves. Not TELUS, though. You guys are really good. But, okay, I want to go to an alternative technology. I want to go roll out LTE, or I want to move. T-Mobile's got a really good 2G story, right? They're the only 2G carrier here in the States that's essentially left. Virgil mentioned a lot of customers, first kind of thought from a global expansion perspective is they want to go to Canada. So you can see pretty quickly that there's a lot of operational obstacles that are created as you start to grow globally. So you've got to manage multiple contracts, multiple platforms, multiple sets of APIs. If you want to grow globally, maybe you work with a company like Telefonica or Vodafone, and they have their own sets of platforms, or you want to switch technologies and go to GSM or satellite. So pretty quickly, and a lot of our customers that are currently multi-carrier, multi-technology have done this to start with, or have realized from the beginning before they started to branch out that they're going to need to address this. So Core has the ability to support those customers from a single contract, single platform perspective. I mentioned before our platform, service delivery platform called Prism Pro, and a single connection. That's really our primary value add when we're going to market with customers. So, as I mentioned before, we're going to talk specifically now about kind of what are some of the things. So I introduced you to Core, what we do, but now what are some of the things that you need to kind of be cognizant of when now if you're deploying an IoT solution. What are some of the things that we can certainly help with? But frankly, even if you're not working with Core, these are probably some of the important questions that you need to make sure that you're asking yourself and considering as you're reviewing all sorts of technology or communications options. So the first probably is the one that's the most important in many cases, outside of coverage probably, is cost, right? There's a lot more to cost than the price of a megabyte. Whether it's overage fees or overage rates or the ability to manage your usage and avoid overage or mitigate that risk, whether it's setup charges, whether it's taxes and fees. I met with a customer a couple weeks ago, and they didn't realize until they actually started to look at their invoice that they had almost 30% in additional, taxes, surcharges, administrative fees. That can add a significant amount to your bottom line if you're deploying an IoT solution. Many of which have they don't have a lot of room for additional margin, especially if it's an application or a solution that needs to be widely deployed. Are you going to deactivate and reactivate your services? Do you have contracts with your end customers? Or maybe that's one of your value adds. Some of our customers say, hey, no contracts, you can deploy this solution. Well, if you have an underlying term commitment with your service provider, then obviously that presents a challenge in order for you to deliver that solution to your end customer. Rounding rules, this is not something that we deal with too much here in the States, but internationally when you deploy, how much they actually bill you for is different in some cases than how much you actually consume. And that can make a big difference in terms of what your actual billable usage is. And then, similar to the deactivation, reactivation fees, maybe you want to suspend a device, it's a seasonal device, it's temporary, and what are the potential fees that are associated with that? This one is really important because we work with a lot of organizations that are in that proof of concept phase. They think they've got an idea that is marketable, or maybe they're bringing a new solution to the market and they're doing a lot of testing. They're doing testing on hardware and platforms and connectivity options. And rarely do you notice any sort of issues during that proof of concept phase when it comes to a connectivity and the ability to manage that connectivity front. So, you get some really cheap hardware, or you get some really good, really cheap connectivity, but you don't have any sort of visibility into what that looks like, or any real way to manage that connectivity. And that's not that big of a deal when you have 100 devices. But when you want to have 10,000 devices, or you want to have 100,000 devices, you better make sure that those things are addressed with whatever service provider that you decide to deploy with. And it's important to make sure that you're working with an organization who can help you look out for those obstacles. We've worked with a lot of companies who we've kind of seen the pitfalls, and we can kind of give you some really good direction on where to go. I feel like I missed one in here, but one of the last ones that Virgil talked about, I feel like I'm flying through my presentation, is certification. So is your device certified? This is much more of an issue here in the North America, as opposed to global deployments. But is your device certified? So on GSM, there's PTCRB, obviously from a regulatory or government perspective, there's FCC, and there might be, if it's body worn, you got to look at SARS, and there's all sorts of different certification requirements that the carriers have and different industries have and the governments have. Core, as I mentioned before, is a part of PTCRB, but we also have an actual certification team that will own that entire process across all of those different certifications that I just referenced, and others. If there's specific in-country regulatory requirements that you have to meet, we can help you kind of navigate those waters. If any of you have ever gone through certification, it's kind of a dark hole. Nobody 100% really knows how to successfully get a device certified efficiently, we can help you. We've done a lot of certifications, well over 1,000 certifications. What's that? Oh yeah, it's absolutely 100%. And you look at anywhere else outside of North America, and they don't have that. In theory, is it a good idea to make sure that what you're putting on the network is not damaging? Yeah, and I think you could probably do that much more efficiently than a 3-month, $30,000 lab test. So yeah, you're right. So yeah, we can help make that easy. So yeah, I did really fly through my presentation. Hopefully you guys have a lot of really good questions. Anything? No, go ahead. No, I appreciate it. No, I mean, you'd be surprised how many, we put that slide on there for a reason, because there's all these really good ideas. You talk about it stymies innovation. Yeah, you're a startup. You're looking to try to prove, move through a proof of concept. And now I should back up and say that we do have carrier agreements and relationships that in place that allow us to support that type of innovation and proof of concept before you ever have to go through certification. But certainly, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000 is a really big, obstacle to potentially have to overcome for some smaller organizations, especially when, potentially the use case or the business case may not have been made yet. So,
who do you consider your competitors?
The carriers, for the most part. I would say, it's kind of a co-opetition that we have. Some of our carrier partners work more closely with us on business opportunities than others. But I would say 2 years ago, if you asked that question, it was certainly other MVNOs in the space. But at least for the last 2 years, certainly in the last 12 months, and with some of the recent changes, consolidation that's gone in the marketplace, absolutely the carriers.
So can you talk to that, like Jasper and Exida, Jasper and Cisco and Exida and PTC? Are they?
We don't see them as competitors. Jasper doesn't. For an example, they're more of the platform side. They did used to sell connectivity, but I think they similar challenges they ran into. They weren't going to be able to sell their platform to other carriers that they were essentially competing against. So they don't provide that anymore. But yeah, I don't know how that will necessarily play out with that recent acquisition, but. Definitely from a competitive standpoint, those are primarily who we're dealing with. And I think we have a good story for customers that are single carrier, single technology. If you've ever worked with the carriers, I personally worked for a carrier or multiple carriers in the past. I know they're not necessarily always the easiest to do business with. So even from a single carrier deployment perspective, I think we're much easier to do business with. We can leverage the scale of our business that we have already deployed today to give really aggressive pricing. So there's other benefits like that, even if potentially you might not be doing a multi-carrier, multi-technology deployment.
What is the largest implementation you or Wireless have out there to date in terms of total sort of connected devices, units, and as well as that across multiple carriers?
Sure. I'll be honest, I can't speak to Wireless because I don't know. Frankly, I don't even know what their customer base is yet. Obviously, I'm sure we have an idea just from a competitive perspective, but I don't know. At Core, I can't give you obviously the company names, but in terms of the verticals that we're supporting and size or scope of those deployments, we have significant deployments in like the fleet and asset tracking space, buy here, pay here, those types of deployments that where there's hundreds of thousands of devices deployed. And yes, they are multi-carrier. Some of them are here domestically. Some of that is international. Another really good example is we've got some really large strategic security-based companies. So traditional alarm panels that are no longer connected via POTS line or IP. It's got a cellular-enabled SIM card or something like that in there. So yeah. Yes.
Dan, can you speak to what's coming up in satellite? Like, is Core looking beyond the current offerings of Iridium and Inmarsat?
I'm sure we are. I don't unfortunately have any good answers on that. I think when we look at new technologies, you brought up a good question before about, low power. I think before we kind of make an investment, we certainly look at, where's the biggest opportunity. A lot of that is driven by our customers asking us, and that's why we brought on Iridium and Inmarsat originally. It was customer demand, which is kind of a business of opportunity, so to speak. So, I don't know what some of the other technologies, what some of the other satellite providers that we may work with. I can guarantee you that if we have an opportunity to support an application with an alternative, I can almost guarantee you that we'll certainly look at supporting that, whether it's on the satellite side or, like you talked about before, potentially a low power solution. How would we potentially take, in 3 or 4 years from now, when maybe there's a standard low power or satellite that's becoming really popular in the industry? How do we tie that in and allow our customers in Prism Pro to manage and have visibility into their devices? That's certainly something that we'll look at and are today. Anybody else? You're making it really easy on me. Awesome. Well, again, on behalf of Core, this is only my second event. We've had other members of our team support the entire eight city, I think, tour. So it's certainly been a pleasure. Thank you guys for having me. But I'm going to take another question. Yeah.
To the extent you can reveal this, I mean, what is average connectivity pricing? I'm sure there's a wide range, but on a monthly basis, are we talking a couple pennies, a couple dollars, a couple tens of dollars? Just ballpark. Give us a sense.
Well, the challenge with that question is there's so many variables that play into there. I would say across the board, if you look at whether it's from us or the carriers on your smallest applications, what I mean, or smallest usage profiles and largest deployments, it's probably in that 50 cent to 40 cent. That's about as low as you're probably going to get on the cellular connected side. It could go, all the way up from there, depending on, if a guy that's sending, 10 kilobytes of data versus a guy that's sending 10 gigabytes of data. But I mean, I think you can probably have a pretty good idea on the higher end what that price would look like just based off of what you use on your cell phone and what you pay for that and that type of thing. Yeah, go ahead. Keep them coming. Yeah.
And earlier, Virgil talked about video.
Sure.
Security aspects. So are you seeing video potentially overwhelming the current networks and driving, say, new solution models?
So we haven't run into any issues at Core. We have a lot of customers that deploy video-based solutions on our network. We've made tremendous upgrades to our network to ensure that we don't add any sort of additional latency or provide any sort of throughput issues or anything like that. On the connectivity side, I think you're somewhat seeing some of the result of that. I mean, there's a reason why AT&T is turning down 2G. It's because it needs that additional spectrum to support LTE, and right now it can't support the customer demand unless it gets rid of 2G. So, I mean, that's a perfect example of right there. And there's even carriers today that are already starting to look at alternatives to LTE Plus or 5G because they're already seeing contention issues on the network. So Core hasn't seen anything specific to our infrastructure that is impeding it, but we're at the mercy essentially of our carrier partners. So certainly if they have an issue with it, I mean, we're going to experience that as well. I think Virgil was going to comment on that.
Just from TELUS's perspective, we've done something a little bit unique in that we segment out our IoT traffic at the core level from our consumer traffic. And so as soon as that information hits the radio network access point, essentially that cell site, it's automatically moved onto a separate network that's going to drive lower latency and higher throughput. The other thing that's advantageous about the Canadian marketplace for introduction of advanced technologies is we have the third fastest wireless networks in the world today. So Korea, I think Denmark, and then it's Canada. We're seeing very high throughput rates, over 100 megabit download speeds on existing LTE infrastructure. Our network is also software upgradable to LTE-A and LTE-M. So rather than having to go out and do a forklift and do channel cards and a lot of heavy lifting in order for our network to be upgraded, a big portion of it is software definable radios. So we have the ability to very quickly and easily migrate to new technology paths, which I think, again, is advantageous, especially as you start to develop products. Again, ease of getting into a market where you can do adequate testing and development of advanced technologies before they may even be ready for the American market is something that I see happening.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, and I'll come back to you for that question, but just to follow up on that, I think that's one of the things that Core does really well as well. We want to make sure that we take that kind of partner collaborative approach, and we have those types of conversations with our customers all the time. It's what should your strategy look like from 2G, 3G, LTE? How can we help you get there? What are all the different carriers doing? There's a big difference between sometimes what we think the carriers might be doing and what actually the carriers are committed to doing, and what we're actually seeing from an investment perspective in terms of investing network investments. So we can certainly help our customers kind of understand, and it's different for everybody depending on your requirements, depending on how long you expect your device to last in the marketplace, where you're going to deploy that device. I mean, there's a lot of variables. So.
A question actually for both of
Yeah.
you. Real quick. But you talked about it in terms of the protocol stack.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned LTE something, A or B.
Yeah.
So specifically though, LTE-D is an important issue that few people really talk about. And the 3GPP, the carriers and let's talk about more the carriers are trying to keep it siloed, especially in respect to things like FirstNet, public safety. But to really apply it to the commercially and even consumer markets, there's a huge opportunity I believe the carriers are missing by siloing the devices.
Sure.
Comment on that? If
Well,
it gets down to LTE-D and Cap 0?
Obviously, I don't want to comment on the carrier's behalf. Maybe Virgil has something to speak. I don't know if you guys can speak to.
Topic, I actually don't have a good answer for you because I'm not. I haven't caught quite up to what's happened in some of the more recent events, so I really don't have a good commentary on that particular piece. But just in general, I think as the technologies evolve, they're always going to be looking for that next level. And that's being driven a lot by consumer products. If you think about where we were 10 years ago, we were happy to get a text message and a simple picture message on our devices. Now, we're streaming the Super Bowl and watching full video with augmented reality of content layered on top. And as 4K starts to become more prolific on these devices, the bandwidth requirements are going to be, increasing exponentially. So I think the media and entertainment industries in particular drive a lot of the content that in turn drives consumer behavior. So the networks are always going to have to evolve around that and how that consumer engagement works.
I just wanted to follow up real quick on something you said about the network. You said when a device hits your radio, you put it on a completely separate network. Does that mean physically complete? Does that mean separate backhaul for the tower, or does that mean you prioritize that data within the same channel? Is it the same network?
I can't get into the specifics, on how exactly that technology works because it's not disclosable. But to say that there is a separate infrastructure in place for IoT.
Physically?
And I think a lot of organizations, a lot of carriers or plants look at that. How do they channelize their data in order to meet the traffic and the growing needs of the IoT data as well as the consumer data? Because now you're layering on top, tens of thousands of sensors, all of which have low payload. A lot of them have low payload, but then you're also looking at other applications, video streaming, surveillance type technologies, high bandwidth utilization, high bandwidth cases, telemedicine. Those are going to transform, digital media, digital in-car entertainment, which is all based off of legacy architectures that are all now entering the marketplace, your OnStars and things. So I think the carriers have got to take a conscious look at how do they manage traffic as holistically with both enterprise and consumer technology.
I guess they'll hit you with some neutrality regulations that won't allow you to prioritize.
And that's the regulatory landscape that exists, right? And so everybody's got to play nice and follow the rules. But again, and that varies globally too. So that's the complexity of IoT as well. As you start to deliver some of these solutions, you really have to have an organization from a legal standpoint that understands the regulatory, compliance aspects of deploying these solutions globally. So it's a very, very important aspect as you develop and bring things into the market that you need to consider is to have somebody that understands the intellectual property laws in various countries, as well as from a HIPAA standpoint here in the U.S., but what are the healthcare and privacy implications in the EU or in the PAC ring, right? It's different everywhere. Do your due diligence up front and avoid the issues.
Now, Dan, you're in an interesting position as a connectivity provider to comment on the market size. We hear these billions and billions of devices. I won't even put a number to it.
Yeah.
You have 6 million devices connected to the network.
Yep.
With Plus.
Yep.
So what do you think about those numbers, and what does Core need to do to get significantly into those numbers?
Well, there's got to be much more intelligence built into kind of the network, all of the different network. I mean, Virgil talked about all the different kind of use cases. I think this is just my personal opinion, but until you start to make all of those more intelligent together, that you're not going to see, I don't know, whatever the newest number out there today is. You're not going to see 500 million or 200 million devices out there unless you can make it more intelligent and make things speak together. I mean, I think for us, we're in a really good position because we certainly appreciate and encourage kind of that evangelizing type of mentality. The what ifs, and kind of look at IOE very with bright eyes, but at the same time we're very practical to say what are the logistical challenges, or is the market actually ready to adopt that type of technology? I mean, if I had $1 for every guy that told me he had the next million device deployment, I'd be rich. And for the most part, there's a lot of challenges that go into deployments. So I certainly think there's tremendous opportunity for growth across all sorts of verticals, and we're going to see that that big hockey stick type of growth rate. But I don't know yet about like the 200 or 300 million. We'll have to wait and see. That's just my opinion. What's that? Well, again, thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. And I guess happy Good Friday for maybe.
Thanks a lot, Dan.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. So you've heard a lot about different types of connectivity solutions. Now we're going to go into the final presentation of the day, and we'll have some networking afterwards where you'll be able to speak with all of the presenters. So next up is Scripter, and I'd like to introduce Rabi Nassar and Tom Gilly. And they're offering not only an IoT platform, and it's quite different than what we've seen so far, but they're also offering real system expertise in the field of IoT. So without further ado,
No phone.
that is it.
All right, I'm a opening act for probably a 3-part play here. We'll keep it short. My name's Tom Gilly. I just sold a company in IoT called Wadio. Actually, Mitchell was a very important participant in that exit. It was a marketplace of IoT applications that operate on data from connectivity platforms, like Core, although Core wasn't a partner, but others like Core. Learned a lot in building that company and selling it. Learned a lot about what type of applications are important to create value. I like what Dan said.
Could you stand there?
Yeah. I like what Dan said about to get the scale, we need to have intelligence and communications between the platforms. One of the applications in Wadio's exchange was a company called Scripter. I'm going to talk about the problem statement, then I'm going to introduce Rabia, who's the founder of Scripter. So before I introduce Scripter, let me tell you about what I see as an interesting problem statement, and it was brought up by Virgil and Dan in their presentation. And it's also been reflected by McKinsey and several others. Two big issues. Interoperability between connected device platforms. You saw Virgil's presentation with use case after use case after use case, and actually in each use case there may have been between 3 to 7 different platforms in that use case. And many of those platforms are data silos. They don't communicate with each other. It's an interoperability nightmare to put a solution out there for even a homeowner. I used to say enterprise, but even the homeowner. One of the companies that I was working with was a large cable operator, and they predict in the next 3 years that the homeowner is going to have near 20 different connected devices in their home. I think that's a little high, but let's say it's 10. Let's say there's 10 different connected devices in the home. That means 10 apps on your phone. And the mobile operator's saying, okay, well, that's just not going to work. We want to do what we did in media and create a consolidated user experience to make it really easy for the homeowner to interact with their devices, solve that interoperability problem. It's the same thing on the enterprise, although it's a much bigger issue on the enterprise. McKinsey says 40% of the value in connected devices in industrial, enterprise, all of the verticals you hear about is interoperability. It's a lockup problem. The other thing they say is that, okay, we get the data, even off a single platform, what do we do with that data? What value are we creating? And looking at the opportunities, at least came to me within Wadio, many of them were early stage operational awareness. I want to know maintenance, inventory, maybe some logistics or supply chain management. It was fairly, let's call it operational. That's probably the best word to call it. It's an expense into an enterprise. The enterprise is having a hard time justifying that return on investments to create a connected device environment because it's really creating efficiencies to a system that's already working. What you need to do is get the data to the business side of the organizations that are making decisions on what product features to add to the product. How do we market the product to our customers? So your Budweiser, Pepsi, Coca-Cola, you've got vending machines all over the world. You want to know what the demographic, the buying patterns. It's more than inventory management. It's actually looking at what the human behavior is. And that's correlating data from multiple platforms, including platforms that you wouldn't think of. I think you noticed IBM bought the Weather Channel for what I think is an insane valuation. But they bought it because of the data. They want to correlate that data with operational information from their very large clients. Hertz. You can imagine what Weather and Hertz might want to create. Another thing that's happening, and this goes back to Virgil's example of the use cases. That was a great presentation of just the nonstop use cases. Every one of those use cases represents a platform, as I said earlier. Here's a great chart from one of the local investment groups, Matt Turk. I thought he might be here today. Is he here? Matt? No. So he put this together. This is a bit old. Since this has been pulled together by Matt, there's been almost a platform announced every week. And the big companies are in the game. Many of them are smaller ones. It's blurry for a reason. The Oracle, SAP, everyone's announcing, I've got an IoT device platform. Again, it's interoperability and creating value out of the data. As Dan said, that intelligence between the systems. Now, some might say, well, standards are going to fix this. Well, just like IoT platforms, but at a slower pace, there seems to be more and more standards. And there's confusion among the standards, not even listed on this. I like this chart. Came out of Center of Global Enterprise 2015, so it's pretty new. It's a nice visualization of where the investment is or who's paying attention to those standards. So large industry, Industrial Internet Consortium. I mean, how many people here probably heard of IIC? Pretty important what they're doing. And there's others. This doesn't have Google, doesn't have Apple. Those are two huge companies that are basically creating Trojan horses that are going into not only homes, but into businesses that aren't on this chart. So standards aren't solving interoperability or creating value out of the data. So I recognize Scripter, which you're going to hear about, as one of the companies that creates that intelligence, the interoperability and the intelligence out of the data in a pretty novel way. It was founded by Rabi, I think 2002. He's got 40 employees. Is revenue generating in the Middle East. It's like millions of users and maybe how many apps in the App Store? 80 apps in the App Store, a large number of apps. And that's a strong base, and it's a pivot into IoT from that platform. So with that, I'd like to give it to Rabi to.
Thank you, Tom. So, all right. I'm going to go one level that side.
You can walk around where you like.
Because I have the microphone, yeah?
Yeah.
It's not working?
Yeah.
Hello?
You're good.
You hear me? Okay. So I'm going to navigate below the strategic talk, and we recognize that we have a fundamental problem, which is the interoperability problem, how to make the platforms talk together, and how to add the layer of intelligence to all these sensors, and how to condition the data before throwing it into the data lakes to exploit it and analyze it. So we came up with this platform, Scripter. At the basic use, the most fundamental use of Scripter is described in this slide. This is somebody creating another nest, let's say. So somebody in his garage or an enterprise creating a new thermostat device, and they put on a prototype, and that prototype needs to. That's the things. Now we need the internet. The prototype needs to talk to the internet, and the Internet of Things, and Scripter can act as that intelligent platform in the cloud that does a number of functions. Illustrated, I don't think you can read it. The code that's in that little window, that's when you log into Scripter, you get to see an IDE. That's one way of using it. And that code is practically a business logic that says, if the temperature is above a certain limit, send an email. And if the temperature has risen since the last reading, send a warning, something like that. What Scripter allows people to do is to develop that quite fast. We're an Internet of Things rapid application development and delivery platform. And then when they're ready to move, when the developer of that application is ready to move into production, they don't lose their investment in that layer of logic that they have developed to power their platform. That's one problem. The other problem that we see with the Internet of Things is, everybody's talking about big data and the premise of the IoT to federate a lot of data and allow people to analyze it. But all big data starts as small data, and that path between that migration from the sensor to the big data lake is never straightforward. That data needs to be conditioned. It's actionable in real time. It needs to be transformed, filtered, etc. And that's another major problem that we solve with Scripter. Same thing, you have a ton of sensors. Before that data comes here to be used, Scripter allows developers, allows enterprise to create atomic business rules that would do filtering, transformation, orchestration, routing, etc., the functions that you would need to apply for that data in transit. Now, just going one level lower on the for the technical crowd, what Scripter, is there a laser here? Anyway, what Scripter allows developers to quickly develop. So it's developed in a rapid application development format and then brought into production immediately. So what developers would do, they would write whatever code, whatever business logic they need to power their application. Then that becomes a secure web service immediately. That's an endpoint that can be used as a RESTian web service, as a WebSocket, through MQTT, etc. And that endpoint can then be hooked into whatever application they're trying to solve, that they're trying to implement the endpoints can be chained together, etc. No? Okay. Did I do something? I think the computer is frozen because even the arrow is not working. Or is working? Okay. This doesn't work. Huh? Okay. All right. So that's the one after. Yeah. Okay. So I showed you that basic layer, which is a scripting layer. We believe that's the fundamental business block. It allows people to get as sophisticated, as granular as they need to solve their business logic problem. But on top of that, for higher level use cases, we provide higher constructs that would allow someone who's not technical to drag and drop business rules and create that same filter, transformation, orchestration, or logic to power a device. I mean, we have a lot of those. I'm just showing those. So there's the business rule, the visual business rule. There's a finite state machine. So if you're trying to create an automation, that would be the best representation for that back-end logic piece of logic. This is it doesn't show. This is a decision table. So that's very interesting if you're doing filtering or transformation. So you're getting data, and you need to, if the data fits a certain criteria, it comes out. It creates a certain action, and this would allow a business user to do that visually without having to write the code. But everything I'm showing you here ends up becoming a script. So people will be using these high-level constructs, but if they need to go one layer deeper, and because the logic, the application needs it, they can do it. That's another interesting plugin that we have that allows people to quickly create visualizations, create dashboards out of the data available in the system. Now, what I showed you the fundamental business, the fundamental building block, which is the scripting layer. I showed you what's on top of it, all these specific plugins that allow you to do decision tables or state machines, etc. Now, underneath the scripting layer, what Scripter really is. So we start when you sign up. You start with a browser-based IDE. So developers can be productive immediately. You just sign up and you're immediately into an environment. You don't need to configure anything. You can start using the platform. That's in the browser. On the back end, if you do it through the website, the back end is deployed automatically. You generate the secure, scalable web services that are usable immediately, no administration required. But we can bring that to the enterprise, do on-site implementations, and we also have a version of Scripter that can be deployed from the cloud into edge nodes. So if a certain application requires that kind of smart layer to be deployed on the edge, so the same paradigms that you've seen that would work in the cloud on-premise would work also on the edge devices. And so that's the browser, the back end. Under the hood on the back end, you've seen just the scripting layer, and what's on top of it, we have 80 internal APIs that solve the fundamental problems that you need when you're developing either an application or you're solving the interoperability problem between applications, which are you need identity management, device management, user management, persistence. You have access immediately to a database, a NoSQL database system, messaging, social integration, enterprise integration, etc. And so these are the classes of internal APIs that we provide. All this is being provided just to make it extremely efficient for people to start being productive. They don't need to figure out additional moving parts to integrate them into the environment for them to start developing solutions. And all these are optional. We have certain cases, customers that are using all our internal features. In other cases, they're just using our scripting capabilities and some of the higher level concepts, and they're using their own databases or their own messaging systems. So these are our main features. We're instantaneous and free. You can go on the website, subscribe, auto-provisioned, and you can start being productive. Universal platform support. We have SDKs for almost everything, and we're doing integrations with all the major IoT platforms. JavaScript-based, that's the most widely misunderstood computer language, but used computer language. So we want to, so practically the learning curve is non-existent because any JavaScript developer, front end or back end or whatever, can be productive immediately. Scalable, we manage that. The application developer does not have to worry about that aspect. Private cloud, on-premise, and on the edge device. Secure, everything that we do, every resource in the system is secure. It has an ACL attached to it, and you can only access it with a token that represents a device or a user, and everything is ACL managed. And cost effective, that's, I believe that's clear. Tom, you want to do the demo?
Great.
Here's your clicker. Thank you.
All right, so what I thought I'd do is wrap up with a use case that we did at Mobile World Congress. We might be able to demonstrate this live if I can figure out how to get this onto the screen. What we're going to see here is a LoRa devices gateway. It's multi-tech, and then we used a baby version of Core. It's a connectivity provider in the UK called Stream Technologies. Their IoT X platform is aggregating the data from the LoRa devices and then creating an API. The API is a WebSocket API. And then we ingest that data. Into the scripter, and all of the constructs and paradigms that Ravi described are really easy to use. We're able to connect to the IoTX connectivity platform with an adapter. It converts it from WebSocket into data that can be transformed and manipulated, and then converted into HTTP for another enterprise service. The enterprise service, the first step is data discovery. For anyone here that's implemented or is going to implement a connected device solution, you're going to go through this phase of trying to figure out what your data is. Probably the worst case scenario is in healthcare. We did a project. It's amazing how undefined and messy the data comes off the healthcare system. You have to go through some sort of data discovery. So one of the data services or applications that we have is called Initial State. It's a nice data visualization, enterprise data visualization tool. Once you understand the data, then you can create a data dictionary, and then you can format that data to an enterprise system. Like, for instance, Informatica. Informatica is a company that creates enterprise application integration middleware. It's pretty well known. It has many adapters to those enterprise systems that a business user would have in their organization. What we do is we can bridge that operational data that I described earlier, which is stuck in IT, and then bring it into the business by doing the intelligence and the transform, and then making it available to Informatica as a middleware platform, which then can be available in Salesforce, NetSuite, SAP, Microsoft. So use case would be vending machines, I mentioned earlier, inventory management, deploying of the products to the vending machines. But then that can go into their Salesforce for doing sales calls, NetSuite for their accounts payable, accounts receivable, just creating connectivity from what had been mundane operational awareness into business systems. That's what's happening. That's what the enterprise wants out of their IoT systems.
Just 1 second. Okay.
We don't have to struggle with this. It's okay.
It should work. It should work.
Maybe you have to slide it
Ruby,
across.
got a second?
Yeah, I think
Yeah, we tried.
we tried.
Can you turn off mirroring? Just turn off mirroring.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got it.
Good.
Show? No. Can we drag it there?
There you go.
There you go.
I can do it.
You can do it?
I can do it. All right. So this is the descriptor environment that Rabi was describing earlier. Here are a couple of connectors. You can introspect those connectors, the code that's a part of connecting to the systems that I described in that block diagram. I'm not going to go through the script here and start a programming seminar. Just give you an idea of, here's IoTX, that's the connectivity platform. These are the scripts that connect to that platform, do the data transform, and then present the data to, in this particular case, it's a visualization solution called initial state. These are operating, as Rabi mentioned, without having to think about any of the back-end operational systems. It's develop, deploy, scale. And then initial state, here's one of the buckets. This is live.
Try this, sorry, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
If you try to maximize so you see the whole window.
All right. So this is coming off of one of the LoRa devices now. And on the left-hand side are the data elements within the payload that's coming off that low-power radio device. And here, I start to experiment and understand what the data is. And you might say that seems odd. It was interesting. We went out to dinner the other night with a very large construction company. It was the 11th in the world. And they said one of the biggest issues that they had in creating their connected device systems was discovering the data from those connected device systems. And the reason was, one, the vendors didn't want to supply the data. They didn't want to give it to the customer. Two, the product is old, and either they don't have the documentation or the people that developed the product are no longer available. So they have to do a lot of data discovery to create a cohesive, intelligent, connected system. And then what I'm going to show you is another step here. All right, so this is also done with Scripter. So Scripter doesn't just deal with the interoperability of data systems and then creating value out of the data. It also allows you to develop widgets and presentation layers of that data. This is a replay of the data from the LoRa device that I was carrying around Barcelona and Mobile World Congress. So this is what you would expect. It's an interactive Google map with data points from the LoRa device. That whole end-to-end, from developing the scripts to going through data discovery, trying to understand what the data payload looked like, to creating the map, from the very beginning, took no more than a couple of days. Now, once that's done, once I have the connectors, the scripts done, it's no more than actually a half hour to put a system together with the elements that I've just described. Okay, so that's it. Is there any questions?
So at the edge level, on the sensor or gateway level, you have some type of ecosystem partnership that you have a requirement to run your agent on top of it, or et cetera. Is that open to all the hardware vendors?
That's a great question. You want to try not to put an agent on an edge device because that's a barrier to business. Every customer has their own agent on the device. Remember that chart I put up with all those logos? Every one of those platforms has its own device agent, and then usually a gateway, then a back-end cloud system. So Scripter and those scripts that I presented are meant to adapt to what already exists. Does that make sense? Rabi also mentioned if it's a greenfield opportunity, we can put agents on devices. We can, although there's so much business out there, it's really important to connect with what's already in market. I mean, the connected device industry, this IoT, has been around for decades. It's just now that we're starting to understand what it means to combine and correlate data to create business value, and that's where IoT is being driven by the business requirements. But creating connected factories, connected farms, connected everything has been around. It's just accelerating at this moment.
your goals was it was free. How do you make money?
Well, free is marketing. You want to onboard as many people as you possibly can with as low a barrier. So we have two ways where we make money once we get people excited about what it is that we do. If they're a small customer, they can use the free offering. If they start to go into production, which is seamless, then it's called a freemium business model, so they pay for the service as they go. But most importantly, it's the enterprise software model. That's what I like in starting companies, because that's where you start to see more significant revenues. So it's licensing the product. Either we're hosting it for them, a managed hosted service, or we deploy it on premise and they host it. But, yeah.
What cloud platforms are you right over here?
Say that again?
What cloud platforms like Amazon, Azure?
Yes, so the cloud platforms, we've got Amazon, SoftLayer, Azure, anything that's OpenStack based, basically anything that's got a hypervisor with a virtual machine. We have a deployment in beta that's been Dockerized, to use a new term, but using Docker as a way of containerizing it so it can be deployed across many different platforms. That's very important, especially when you deal with on-premise. Some of these enterprise customers have invested a lot in their own premise, like Core as an example. So if we were to do something with Core and they wanted to offer it off their infrastructure, it would need to work within their infrastructure, almost always. Any other questions? Okay, well, very good. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom and Rabia from Scripter. So next up, we have Nana.
Okay. Do you want to come up, Dan, for a raffle? So I don't know if everyone knows, but we do have a raffle. Thanks for sticking around. We have a nice brand new iPad mini right under the desk, so we're going to pull a name. We don't have any more. Oh, well, we do have a. Okay. So please pick one out of. Actually, this time, because it's the last one, the speakers, Virgil, you, and the two speakers are inside as well.
Oh, wow.
Good
So if
one.
I pick mine, I clearly have to pick another one.
Put it back.
Yeah.
So, pick one. RZ, okay. So that is Roland Zeter. Roland Zeter.
Congratulations.
Not often that a name with a Z comes first.
True. Congratulations.
So we'll do quick member announcements. So if you have an announcement, you can, actually it's best if you come up here if you want to be on screen. Okay, who is something to, okay, so this is like you are looking for a job, your company is offering jobs, you're looking to offer something to the community, you're looking for a specific area of expertise, you're looking for an internship. Now's your time. Okay, great. You want to come? Yeah, if you can come up, it would be great. Yeah.
Hello, happy Good Friday. My name is Peter from Netcom Wireless. We are the OEM for M2M Cellular Gateway, and we make various M2M Cellular Gateway for Tier 1 carriers as well as MVNO and others. So if you have any questions or interested in M2M Cellular Gateway, I'm here. We can have an open discussion. We can chat about your application or how to connect from the end device all the way through to your dashboard. So free of service. So I'm here for you guys. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Great. If you can make a quick line here so we can go through it quickly. Anybody else, just come up to the front and we'll go through quickly, and great.
Good morning, I'm Chris Merck. My company, Merck Engineering, provides prototyping and development services for IoT hardware. So anyone interested in building out LoRa hardware in particular, I'd love to talk to you.
And how do they find you? Do you have a website or?
You can go to merckeng.com, MERCKENG.com, or find me. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Chris. Jamie.
Hello, my name is Jamie Harkrider, and I work with the Ontario government. And my role here in New York is working with companies to educate and inform them on the local ecosystem in Ontario. And as I'm sure many of you know, there is a great network there in terms of startup companies as well as talent, and of course a lot of great engineering coming out of Ontario. And obviously there's TELUS was here, so that was, I'm sure I'll speak with him following this. Feel free to connect with me if you're interested in doing business in the province or learning more about some of the programs available, including incentive programs for hiring talent, especially through the universities. I'm your person. So once again, it's Jamie Harkrider. I'm jamie.harkrider@ontario.ca. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Jamie.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Craig Reek. I'm very happy to be here. It's my first time at an IoT Central meeting. I got to my first Meet Me meeting last night in Princeton. I'm from a company called Volantis Technologies, and I'm very happy to be there because it's in this business, the IoT market. We have about 200 engineers who are focused on developing a software that's embedded in our clients' products. And that's where most of our revenues come from. So I'd like to just connect with anybody here and hand out my card and get to talk to you. But it's a very exciting place to be. I am happy to be here, and it looks like a lot of fun to me.
Great.
I'm going to go.
So,
My name's Jolly. I'm with the Internet Society. And first I want to say to Mitchell what a great job he does with NYC IoT. And I assume you're all in that meetup so that you get that list. So you would have seen that I posted 2 days ago. The Internet Society, we're the parents of the IETF. The IETF put out a document on standards. And so, I would suggest you read it. If you're not on that list, I'll post it in the Meetup page so that you can get it. And if you're not members of the Internet Society and you're using the Internet, I recommend you join the Internet Society. It doesn't cost any money.
Okay. Hi. So as I mentioned briefly earlier, if your company is interested in entering the German market, the European market, also joining, we are the marketing office for the M2M Alliance, which is the largest European IoT M2M association. Please come talk to me. We can also exchange emails and discuss that further when I'm back in Germany and I'm with my German team. So yeah, just wanted to self-promote there. So.
Great, thanks, Nana. And I can attest, Nana and team are great to work with. I've had a great experience over the last couple of months working with them. Nan, do you want to? Okay. Well, I'll mention again that there's a gentleman, Nan. He can raise his hand, and he's looking for an embedded internship, so embedded software internship. So I'd just like to thank a few people again. First of all, thanks everybody for coming. I think this is a really informative session. We really thank the speakers from TELUS and Core and Scripter. And I would like to especially thank Jolly McPhee, who's tirelessly recorded and posted our videos online so that not only the people who attend these sessions can enjoy them, but people can enjoy them either at home or in the office live, and then can also enjoy them afterwards as they are on our YouTube channel. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/NYCIOT. And then, of course, we have great thanks to Loeb and Loeb, and in particular, Lloyd Rothenberg. Thank you again for partner at Loeb and Loeb for hosting us, not only this time, but they've been very supportive of IoT Central. And so we appreciate your continued support. And Lloyd will be here as well to answer questions after the session. So again, we thank our speakers, the sponsors. And if anybody has any questions, you can either ask now or we'll go right to networking. The one other thing to mention, as I mentioned in the beginning, we have the next event that we have is a one-day IoT course, and there is a flyer in your seat. So if you have any questions at all, and I think we have at least one person here that's already registered in the room, So if you have any questions, please feel free to see me. The website is iotforbusinessleaders.com. Thanks again for everyone for coming, and we hope to see you at the next IoT Central event. Thanks a lot.